Are you surprised? Are you optimistic about the fact that the global markets have not reacted in a more negative way this morning?
Well, I think it's important to put this into context. So we've been aware of these proposed tariffs for some time. And if you look at recent months, the Chinese market has sold off pretty aggressively. June was one of the worst months on record for the Chinese renminbi. So to some degree, the muted reaction we're seeing today is partly because the markets were discounting this first round. Now, what happens next in markets does depend a lot on what happens next in terms of the trade talks.
Yeah, I think your point is very important and very well taken, which is that the majority of Chinese domestic companies are in a bear market. They're down over 20% from their highs. The U.S. is effectively flat, although small cap domestic U.S. stocks have done well. Is that a sign that you believe that China will be disproportionately more injured than the United States by this fight?
Look, mathematically, it's quite clear that these kind of tariffs do affect Chinese GDP a great deal more than it affects US GDP. However, when you step back and look at the broader picture, look at the issues with Europe, look at the issues with Canada and Mexico, you can see that actually it is a much bigger deal than just the tariffs that came into effect at midnight last night. And so we would expect, in the absence of a quick settlement of the outstanding disputes, some more serious consequences if the trade wars keep escalating.
As a fund manager, what are you watching the most closely right now?
Well, essentially, all trade wars are political rather than being economic. So already as a portfolio manager, I'm slightly out of my remit thinking about the political issues. However, the key issue to watch is, are the tariffs that have now been announced the first step in a negotiation? In which case, all sides have established that they mean business. And if they now get around the table and settle relatively quickly, which is what's happened in past tariff disputes, which have generally been much smaller in scale, then actually this should blow over and it shouldn't have a big market impact. However, a very important issue is that this seems to be part of a broader trend that was in place even before the current administration came into power in the US, which is visible all around the world. So that's the election of more nationalistic politicians, more isolationist politicians, and more political movements that are against globalization, against liberalization.
Is that the biggest risk? Because what you just said is happening in Germany. We just saw that Angela Merkel had to probably hold her nose and make a deal with I don't want to say the far right, but the right side of German politics to create these sort of transit or detention centers at the border of Germany. Are we starting to see more European nations become more insular, move a little more to the right, perhaps risk that political side even more over the next number of years?
I think that's the case. So we've had 30 years of steady one-way ratchet of liberalization and globalization, and that has really benefited global prosperity. However, the benefits of that have been unevenly distributed. The working class and middle classes in many developed countries have suffered. And what we're seeing now is a reaction against that. So the one thing we can say for sure out of last night's imposition of tariffs is that we've passed the high tide mark for globalization and liberalization. The greatest risk of these tariffs going forwards is that it entrenches the positions of far-right politicians in lots of other systems around the world, and then creates more belligerent trade talks, more belligerent negotiations for all parties concerned going forwards.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.